The grand hall of GalacticPrime gleamed under the pale light of twin suns. Its walls were lined with alien banners, shimmering with strange symbols and glowing runes. Every corner of the hall reflected wealth and power, from the polished floors to the hovering chandeliers that cast soft, golden light across the chamber. Alien dignitaries from across the galaxy had gathered, their towering forms and exotic appearances filling every seat. The air buzzed with excitement, arrogance, and expectation. Captain Elias Thorne stepped into the hall. He was human. In this place, humans were considered primitive, backward, and weak. Elias was not large, not towering like the aliens surrounding him. His frame was lean, built more for endurance and speed than for sheer strength. His armor, though functional, was outdated. The metal plates were scratched, dented, and patched in several places. Its once shiny surface had dulled, revealing the years of human ingenuity, repairs, and improvisation. He could feel the eyes on him. Not just curious eyes, but dismissive, mocking eyes. The council had assembled to witness human participation in their annual demonstration of power, a chance for every species to show strength, technology, and skill. For humans, this was a test, and Elias knew it. From her seat on the high dais, Princess Vela observed him with a sharp, calculating gaze. Her posture was perfect, regal, and imposing. Unlike the other aliens, she had no patience for fools, or for humans who thought they could compete with her empire's elite. When Elias moved forward, she laughed, a bright, mocking sound that echoed through the hall. "That armor," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber, "is a joke. Did your species come here with that relic?" Her laughter was not quiet. It rang like a bell of scorn. Around her, the council members chuckled, some openly pointing at Elias. He did not respond immediately. His eyes swept across the crowd, noting every sneer, every gesture of contempt. The laughter intensified, but Elias remained calm. He knew something they did not. They saw only the armor. They did not see the man inside it. Are we to laugh or pity him? Another alien sneered, a four-armed warrior with scales that shimmered like molten silver. The audience erupted in more laughter. Elias took a measured step forward, the metal of his boots clanging softly against the polished floor. "You mock what you do not understand," he said finally, his voice steady, carrying without raising. It was not loud, not commanding, but firm like a stone in the current. Silence flickered briefly. Some in the crowd looked at him, surprised that a human dared speak back. But Princess Vela only raised an eyebrow, her amusement shifting to mild irritation. "Understand?" she said, stepping forward slightly, her voice sharp. "This machine you wear is laughable. How can you face anyone with this weak armor? Your species must be desperate or foolish." Elias did not flinch. Instead, he lowered his head slightly, letting his eyes meet hers directly. In that moment, there was no fear, no anger, only focus. The hall seemed to notice. The air thickened with tension, and for a moment the laughter faded to whispers. "I face what needs to be faced," Elias said simply. "Armor does not make the warrior. The warrior makes the armor useful." Whispers spread through the hall. Some were skeptical. Some were curious. Many were still mocking, but a seed of doubt had been planted. Princess Vela's smile faltered. She leaned back in her chair, clearly unused to a human speaking with such quiet authority. "A bold statement," she said, her tone carrying both challenge and scorn. "We shall see if you can back it up." At that moment, a blast of light from the arena's main entrance signaled the start of the demonstration. Elias walked toward it, his movements deliberate, unhurried. The hall's polished floor reflected his worn armor, each dent a story of survival, each scratch a mark of experience. The aliens in the hall murmured. Some snorted derisively. Others tilted their heads, curious despite themselves. Elias's armor looked heavy, outdated, clumsy compared to the sleek, glowing suits of the other species. But as he stepped into the light, there was a grace to his movement, a quiet confidence that contradicted the laughter they had shared moments before. The arena was vast. Floating platforms, energy barriers, and moving obstacles had been set up for the demonstration. Aliens from different worlds lined the sides, watching as the human prepared. A panel of alien judges hovered above, their luminescent forms observing every detail. Elias knelt briefly, checking the integrity of his armor's joints and his own readiness. Then he stood tall. He did not speak again. His actions would be louder than any words. The first opponent appeared. A giant alien four-armed, scaled-hide, glowing eyes. Its armor was polished, gleaming with energy shields. The crowd erupted with cheers. They expected an easy victory. Elias simply waited, watching, studying, analyzing. The fight began. The alien lunged with blinding speed, swinging a massive blade. Elias sidestepped with a human fluidity that surprised the audience. He moved not with the force of the armor, but with the precision of a trained body, exploiting weaknesses in the alien's attack. Each movement was calculated, economical, almost elegant. Gasps spread through the hall. The alien struck again and again, but Elias evaded, countered, and repositioned. The dents and scratches on his armor proved irrelevant. It did not hinder him. In fact, it allowed freedom of movement impossible in bulkier, heavier suits. Princess Vela leaned forward. Her interest piqued despite herself. Impressive. But it's only one opponent, she murmured, though the note of challenge had softened slightly. One by one, more opponents came. Skilled warriors, each more dangerous than the last, and each one fell to the human's clever tactics, quick thinking, and fearless endurance. The hall that had laughed moments ago now watched in disbelief. Whispers turned into murmurs of admiration, even awe. Still, Elias did not raise his voice. He did not boast. His armor had been mocked, yet he moved like a storm contained in a human body, every motion precise, purposeful. He was a study in contradiction, fragile in appearance, lethal in action. Finally, after what seemed like an endless series of challenges, Elias stood alone in the center of the arena. His chest heaved slightly, his armor scratched and battered, yet intact. The hall was silent now. Even the murmurs of the council had stopped. Every eye was on him, the man who had turned ridicule into respect without a word. Princess Vela's expression had changed. No longer amusement, no longer scorn. Now there was something else. A recognition, faint but undeniable, that humans were not what the galaxy expected. Elias met her gaze once more. "The armor is not what you mocked," he said quietly. "It is a tool."
"But the warrior."
"The warrior is something else entirely." The silence in the hall was deafening. For the first time, aliens who had dismissed humans as weak realized that underestimation was a dangerous mistake. The princess straightened in her seat, her eyes narrowing, not in anger but in thoughtful consideration. She had seen enough to know that this human, this simple-looking captain in his battered armor, was not to be ignored. Elias turned and walked back toward the hall's entrance, his steps calm, confident, and deliberate. The crowd parted instinctively, some in awe, some still hesitant to believe. Yet the seed had been planted. Respect for humans, long denied by centuries of prejudice, had begun to grow in the hearts of those who had laughed first. As he reached the entrance, Elias paused, glancing back at Princess Vela. "Judge not by armor alone," he said. Then he left the arena, leaving behind a hall full of aliens who would not forget what they had seen. The morning sun had barely risen over Zorath Prime, yet the council hall was already alive with activity. Whispers and murmurs floated through the chamber as alien dignitaries gathered once again, their faces full of curiosity and lingering doubt. The events from the previous day, the demonstration of human skill, had spread like wildfire. Humans were being watched now. Their reputation was changing, slowly but unmistakably. Captain Elias Thorne stood in the center of the arena alone once more. The hall seemed smaller now, filled with stares, speculation, and anticipation. Today was no longer a casual demonstration. The council had decided the human would face a formal challenge, one designed to test not only his armor but his wits, his tactics, and his courage. Princess Vela sat at the dais, her gaze sharp and unwavering. There was a quiet tension in the air. She had seen his skill yesterday, yes, but she did not yet fully understand what humans were capable of. Today she intended to change that, or so she thought. "Humans are clever," she murmured to her aide, a small, multi-limbed alien with glowing eyes. "But clever does not equal strength. Let us see if this one can survive against our best." From the side of the arena, a door opened and a team of elite warriors emerged. They were the pride of the council, genetically enhanced, heavily armored, and armed with technology that surpassed anything humans had ever seen. Their movements were precise, synchronized, and intimidating. Elias did not flinch. He studied each warrior carefully, noting the weapons they carried, their stance, and their patterns. The alien judges hovered above, recording every detail. Elias knew they expected him to fail. That expectation, he decided, would be his advantage. The first warrior stepped forward. A massive figure twice the size of a human with armored arms ending in energy blades. Its eyes glowed with confidence and it lunged at Elias immediately, testing his reaction. Elias moved like water. He sidestepped, letting the blade slice past harmlessly. The hull gasped.
He was not using brute force.
He was using instinct and observation. Every motion was calculated, every step precise. The armor he wore, battered, old, patched, allowed him flexibility that the bulky alien suits could not. The second warrior attacked from above, leaping from a raised platform. Elias pivoted mid-step, narrowly avoiding a crushing strike. He grabbed a loose piece of the arena wall and used it as leverage to launch himself to the side, putting him out of reach. The crowd watched in disbelief. How could someone move so freely, so efficiently in armor that looked so weak? The third warrior circled him, armed with a plasma rifle capable of disintegrating steel. Elias crouched low, keeping close to the floor, dodging the initial shots. Then he rolled toward cover, using the arena's structure to block the incoming fire. Every move was intentional, a dance between survival and precision. Princess Vela frowned. "No human can do this," she whispered. But even as she spoke, her eyes betrayed curiosity, perhaps even a hint of admiration. The elite warriors grew frustrated. Their attacks were coordinated, relentless, and precise. They expected the human to falter, to be overwhelmed by superior technology and strength. Yet Elias continued, exploiting every gap, anticipating every move. His mind worked as fast as his body, analyzing, adapting, predicting. Then came the moment the crowd did not expect. Elias threw his helmet to the side, revealing a calm, focused face. The human body inside the armor was lean but powerful, built for endurance, agility, and resilience. He moved not like someone reliant on armor, but like someone who understood his own capabilities and limitations. Gasps echoed through the hall. Some council members whispered among themselves. Others simply stared, frozen. Princess Vela's eyes narrowed. She had thought his armor weak. Now she realized it had been a misdirection. The real strength, the human strength, was within him, unarmored, unyielding. Elias pressed forward, now taking a more aggressive approach. He used the arena itself as a weapon, manipulating barriers, walls, and platforms to redirect attacks and confuse the warriors. He lured one of the largest attackers into a trap, forcing it to stumble into a barrier that sent it sprawling. Then, using his agility, he disarmed another warrior, knocking away a plasma blade and using it to fend off the remaining attackers. The crowd watched, some in awe, some in disbelief. The humans were showing a new type of warfare, one that relied not on superior technology but on intelligence, strategy, and instinct. They were unpredictable, adaptable, and fearless. Princess Vela rose from her seat. Her previous amusement was gone, replaced by a cautious respect. "Interesting," she said softly, almost to herself. "Humans fight differently. They do not rely on armor or weapons, they rely on themselves." Elias finished the demonstration with a final daring move. He vaulted over a low-energy barrier, landing in the center of the arena. His armor, scratched and dented, bore the marks of battle, yet he remained unscathed. He raised his hand briefly in acknowledgement of the hall, a silent statement that the human had survived, and survived without relying on the strength of the armor itself. The silence in the hall was almost deafening. The council, the audience, even the elite warriors themselves, all stared, absorbing what they had just witnessed. Aliens who had come to mock the human now felt unease, respect, and curiosity. They realized that human strength was something different, something they had underestimated. Elias did not boast. He did not celebrate. He simply lowered his stance and scanned the arena, ready for whatever came next. His eyes met Princess Vela's once again. There was no anger, no arrogance, only calm determination. "You're clever," she said finally, her voice steady. "I admit it. You have skill, courage, and perhaps even wisdom. But can you survive beyond this arena? Can you withstand real danger when there are no rules, no witnesses?" Elias smiled faintly. "Perhaps," he said. "Or perhaps humans thrive when others underestimate them. That has always been our way." Her gaze sharpened and a small smirk appeared on her face. "We shall see," she signaled to the judges, who nodded. "Prepare the next stage. Let him face the challenge that will prove whether his skill is enough or whether he is merely lucky. The arena shifted, panels moved, energy fields rose, and new obstacles appeared. This was no longer a demonstration. It was a real test of adaptability and strategy. The elite warriors readied themselves again, and the council held its collective breath. Elias adjusted his armor slightly, checking the integrity of his joints, testing the flexibility he had come to rely on. The worn metal felt reassuring, a familiar extension of himself. It was not the strongest armor, not the most advanced, but it was his. It had survived battles humans had fought across the stars, improvisations and repairs reflecting centuries of resilience. The challenge began. This time, the warriors attacked together. A coordinated strike that would crush most opponents. Plasma blasts, energy swords, and brute force converged on the human. Yet Elias moved with fluid precision, weaving through attacks, using the arena itself to manipulate the battlefield. He ducked, rolled, vaulted, and pivoted. Each step was a calculation, each movement a response to the chaos around him. The crowd could no longer laugh. Murmurs of disbelief replaced it. How is he still alive?" whispered a council member. Elias focused, anticipating the attacks of multiple opponents at once. One warrior tried to trap him with a sudden surge of energy barriers. Elias leapt onto a moving platform, using it to catapult himself into the midst of his attackers. He struck, deflected, and disarmed with surprising force, demonstrating the deadly precision of human improvisation. Princess Vela's eyes widened. She had underestimated him, as she admitted silently. Humans were clever, adaptable, and fearless. They did not rely solely on strength or technology. They relied on courage, cunning, and instinct. Finally, the warriors were forced back, unable to adapt quickly enough to Elias's unpredictable style. The human stood in the center, calm, alert, and unscathed. His armor bore scratches and dents, a testament to the battle, but the man inside remained unbroken. The hall erupted into a mixture of shock and awe. The elite warriors, once confident of their victory, now stared in disbelief. The council whispered among themselves, reconsidering their assumptions about humans. Princess Vela leaned forward in her seat, her expression unreadable. She had been proven wrong, not only about Elias, but about humanity itself. The human had survived not because of armor, but because of himself. "You fight with intelligence," she said finally, her voice carrying across the hall, "and that makes you dangerous. Perhaps we have underestimated your species for too long." Elias bowed slightly, acknowledging her words, but did not respond further. Action spoke louder than words. And in this hall, filled with the galaxy's most powerful beings, his actions had spoken louder than anyone could have imagined. As the crowd began to murmur once more, Elias knew the path ahead would be even more challenging. The council would not let a human rise without testing him further. But he also knew that humans had always thrived when underestimated. And this was just the beginning. The arena on GalacticPrime had fallen silent. The air, heavy with tension, seemed to hum as alien spectators waited for the next stage of the challenge. Captain Elias Thorne stood in the center, his armor battered, scratched, and dented from yesterday's and today's trials. Yet he appeared calm, almost serene, like a predator aware of its surroundings, but not rushed by the chaos around him. Princess Vela observed him closely, her eyes sharp, calculating. She had expected the human to stumble, to falter under the pressure of elite warriors' energy blasts and complex obstacles. Yet here he was, still standing, unbroken and alert. Something about his presence unsettled her. Not fear, she was not afraid, but a creeping realization that humans were far more than they appeared. Elias glanced around the arena. The elite warriors, still recovering from their last coordinated attack, now stared at him warily. They had trained for centuries, honed their bodies, upgraded their armor, and studied combat tactics. And yet a single human had outmaneuvered them at every turn, using wit, speed, and instinct rather than brute force or overwhelming technology. A judge floated closer, his translucent form glowing with authority. "Captain Elias Thorne," he said, "you have impressed the council. But the next stage requires you to demonstrate the true strength of your people. Not just skill, but endurance, strategy, and courage. Are you prepared?" Elias nodded. "I am." His voice was calm, measured, carrying the weight of experience rather than arrogance. The hall held its breath. The human had already proven himself capable in combat, but now the council wanted to see what lay beneath. The essence of humanity itself. Princess Vela leaned forward. "Then show us," she said. "Show us why humans survive where others fail. Show us why your species is remarkable." Elias reached behind him and unclasped the first layer of his armor. The movement was deliberate, unhurried. Panels of worn metal slid away, revealing lighter, more flexible layers beneath. The crowd whispered. Some aliens squirmed in discomfort. Their expectations, built on preconceived notions of human weakness, were beginning to crumble. He did not stop. Piece by piece, Elias removed the outer layers of armor, each revealing more of his lean, muscular frame. It was not the frame of a superhuman or genetically enhanced soldier. It was human, ordinary to the eye, yet honed through years of discipline, training, and endurance. Every muscle, every sinew, every scar told a story of survival, ingenuity, and resilience. The hall was silent now. Even the elite warriors stopped moving, their expressions frozen. They had expected a show of technology, armor, and flashy energy weapons. What they saw instead was raw human strength, adaptability, courage, and the quiet confidence that came from knowing oneself. Princess Vela's eyes widened. She had underestimated him, underestimated humans. The realization struck her like a cold wind. Humans were not just physical beings dependent on technology. They were adaptable, resourceful, and unyielding. They thrived on challenges, using creativity and instinct in ways that no alien race could fully anticipate. Elias stepped fully out of his armor, leaving only a light, flexible bodysuit beneath. The movement was simple, unceremonious, yet it carried a weight of revelation. He was not hiding behind armor. He did not need it to prove himself. Every eye in the hall could see what humans truly relied upon: courage, intelligence, and the ability to adapt to any situation. A murmur spread through the crowd. Some were awed, some were confused. Many were beginning to understand that their assumptions about humans had been wrong. Princess Vela rose slightly in her seat, her expression unreadable. She had always valued strength, armor, and technology above all else. Yet here was a human standing unarmored, who had bested her finest warriors without relying on anything more than his own skill, strategy, and quick thinking. "Your species fights differently," she admitted, her voice quiet but carrying across the arena. "You do not rely on strength alone nor on technology. You rely on yourself, and that makes you dangerous." Elias did not respond verbally. Words were unnecessary. His actions, his presence, and the calm confidence in his eyes spoke louder than any argument could. The hall understood now. This was not a man to be dismissed, mocked, or underestimated. The judges hovered closer, their glowing forms documenting every detail. "Captain," one said, "your display is unprecedented. Other species rely on enhancements, weapons, and armor to survive. Humans survive through ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. This is remarkable." Elias inclined his head slightly. "We have learned to survive," he said simply. "When others depend on technology, we depend on ourselves. That has always been our way." Attention filled the arena, thick and heavy, as the council processed this revelation. For centuries, aliens had looked down upon humans. They had believed humans to be primitive, weak, and dependent on crude tools. Elias had shown them otherwise. Human ingenuity, courage, and adaptability were forces that could not be measured by technology alone. Princess Vela's gaze remained fixed on him. She had been taught to respect power, to fear nothing but weakness. Yet here was a human who had redefined the meaning of strength. She had mocked him, laughed at his armor, and dismissed his species as inferior. Now she found herself reconsidering everything she had believed. "Impressive," she said finally, her tone steady but carrying a note of respect. "You have survived trials that would have crushed most warriors, and you did it without depending on armor or weapons alone. Tell me, human, how far will your courage take you?" Elias stepped forward, his posture relaxed but alert. "As far as it must," he replied. "Humans survive by facing challenges, by thinking, adapting, and never underestimating what they can do. We rely on each other and on our ability to endure. That is why we survive when others fail." A murmur of approval ran through the hall. Some council members were nodding subtly. Others exchanged quiet whispers, realizing they had underestimated humans for generations. The revelation was profound. Humans were not weak. Humans were not primitive. Humans were unpredictable, resilient, and formidable in ways that technology could not measure. The elite warriors, still recovering from the previous stage, now viewed Elias with caution. They had expected a challenge that relied on armor and weapons. Instead, they faced a warrior who embodied adaptability and instinct. Each move he made was precise, intelligent, and unpredictable. They could anticipate no pattern because his strategy was not programmed or trained. It was human. Princess Vela rose from her seat, her posture commanding attention. "You have shown more than skill," she said, her voice carrying authority. "You have shown the essence of your people. Humans are resourceful, resilient, and fearless. That is a strength we cannot ignore." Elias inclined his head slightly, acknowledging her words without arrogance. He had not sought praise or recognition. His goal had always been simple: to survive, to prove that humans were not to be underestimated, and to show that true strength came from within. The council, once filled with laughter and mockery, now held its collective breath. Aliens who had come to witness human failure now understood that they were witnessing something extraordinary. The human before them had transcended expectation. He had turned scorn into respect, ridicule into revelation, and mockery into awe. Princess Vela's eyes softened slightly. She had been proud, confident, and dismissive. Now she felt something new: respect, tinged with the awareness that humans were a force the galaxy had overlooked. "You have earned more than victory in the arena," she said. "You have earned recognition and perhaps understanding." Elias stepped back, allowing the hall to absorb the moment. He was unarmored yet completely confident. He was human, and in that simplicity lay a power the galaxy could not ignore. The hall remained silent, heavy with realization. The laughter and mockery of yesterday had vanished. In its place was awe, respect, and the undeniable truth. Humans were not weak. Humans were survivors. Humans were clever, adaptable, and courageous, and Captain Elias Thorne had proven it beyond doubt. As the sun's light reflected off the arena floor, Elias looked once more at Princess Vela. There was no challenge in his eyes, no arrogance. Only calm assurance and the quiet knowledge that humans had always thrived when underestimated. For the first time in the Council's history, humans were no longer outsiders. They were a force to be reckoned with, a species whose strength lay not in armor, weapons, or technology, but in ingenuity, courage, and the indomitable human spirit. The calm that had settled over the council hall on Zorath Prime did not last. A sudden alarm pierced the air, a high-pitched, shrill signal that echoed across the chamber. Alien dignitaries stiffened, glancing at one another with fear and confusion. Princess Vela's sharp eyes narrowed instantly. Something was wrong. "Raiders," she hissed, her voice carrying a note of urgency. "They've found us. And they attack fast." Outside the hall, the sky glowed with streaks of fire and energy blasts. Alien raiders, marauders from a distant system, had spotted the gathering of leaders and sought to seize control, or worse, plunder the wealth of the council. The hall's defenses were formidable, but the attackers were cunning and unpredictable. They had studied the defenses, anticipated weaknesses, and struck with precision. Elias Thorne stepped forward, calm despite the chaos. The council had tested his skill in the arena, yes, but this was different. There were no rules, no judges, no observers to moderate the fight. This was real danger, life and death, strategy and survival against opponents who would not hold back. Princess Vela looked at him, her expression a mix of concern and hope. "Captain Thorne," she said, "our forces are strong, but these raiders are ruthless. Can your people lead us through this?" Elias did not hesitate. "We will survive," he said simply. "Humans survive when others underestimate them. We adapt, we think, we fight together. Follow my lead." The council forces scrambled to respond, but the aliens had underestimated the human instinct for strategy. While their defenses relied on technology, shields, and brute force, Elias relied on observation, improvisation, and coordination. He moved quickly among the soldiers, issuing concise commands, pointing out weak points in the raiders' formation, and predicting the enemy's movements before they struck. "Take the platforms on the left," he ordered. "Use the barriers to funnel them into the choke points. Watch the sky. They will attack from above." Alien warriors exchanged skeptical looks, unused to such direct, adaptive leadership. Humans had no vast enhancements, no energy shields that could repel the strongest blasts. They relied on intelligence, ingenuity, and teamwork. But as Elias demonstrated, These qualities were more than enough. The raiders struck first. Sleek ships dived from the sky, discharging energy bolts that tore through some of the Council's outer defenses. Aliens on the ground scrambled, firing weapons that lit up the arena in bursts of light and energy. The Council's soldiers were skilled, yes, but they lacked the unpredictability that humans possessed. They reacted with strength, but not with imagination. Elias moved among them like a shadow, small gestures directing forces, his voice carrying over the chaos. "Block that exit! Fall back to the left!" Focus fire on their leader. Every command was precise. Every action anticipated the enemy's next move. Where the raiders thought to strike unpredictably, Elias had already adapted, turning their aggression into vulnerability. A group of elite raiders broke through the outer barrier, rushing toward the central hall. Elias intercepted them, moving with lightning speed, disarming one with a swift twist of his body, using his momentum to knock another off balance. His movements were fluid, human ingenuity in motion. Where technology failed to predict or counter, instinct, agility, and quick thinking prevailed. Princess Vela watched in awe. The human they had mocked, laughed at, was now the key to their survival. Without him, many council members might have fallen. With him, the tides of battle shifted. One raider, larger and more armored than the others, charged directly at Elias. Energy blades flashed, and the crowd gasped. But Elias did not panic. He sidestepped, using the raider's momentum against it, sending it crashing into a barrier. Before it could recover, Elias rolled and struck a critical point, temporarily disabling the alien. The efficiency, the precision, it was unlike anything the Council had seen. Humans fight differently, Princess Vela murmured to herself. They do not overpower, they outthink. They do not merely survive, they adapt. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the hall, another group of raiders attempted to flank the defenders. Elias noticed immediately. He sprinted toward the approaching threat, gesturing to Council soldiers. "Set the traps. Use the terrain. Force them to fight on our terms." He led a small human contingent, moving with agility that no armored alien could match. Using barricades, debris, and even the hall's architecture, they funneled the raiders into narrow choke points. With every attack, the humans adapted, changing tactics mid-fight, surprising the invaders with moves they could not anticipate. A raider fired a plasma cannon directly at Elias. Without hesitation, he dove behind a barrier, using its reflective surface to redirect part of the blast toward other attackers. The raiders faltered, realizing their precision could be turned against them. The battle raged, fierce and chaotic, but Elias never lost focus. Each decision was calculated. Each move exploited human strengths, speed, intelligence, and adaptability. The raiders, though technologically superior, were slow to adjust. Their tactics relied on predictable power. Humans thrived in unpredictability. As the fight continued, Council soldiers began to follow Elias's lead. Alien warriors who had once doubted the human now trusted him. They mirrored his adaptive tactics, using strategy and observation instead of brute force alone. Slowly, the tide of battle shifted. The raiders, once confident, began to fall back. Princess Vela's heart pounded. She had underestimated him, underestimated his species. Humans, she realized, had a kind of strength the galaxy had not yet seen. Resilience, ingenuity, and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. They did not need armor, shields, or advanced technology to triumph. They needed determination, intelligence, and teamwork. Elias noticed the raiders' commander attempting a desperate strike to turn the battle. Without hesitation, he intercepted. Moving faster than anyone expected, he disarmed the alien, redirected an energy blast back at the raiders, and forced their leader to retreat. One by one, the remaining raiders fled, realizing their strategy had failed against this single human and his small coordinated force. The arena, once filled with chaos, fell silent. Smoke and debris hung in the air, illuminated by flickers of fading energy. The council members slowly looked around, realizing the extent of the victory. The raiders had been repelled not by superior technology, not by brute strength, but by humans, adaptable, intelligent, and fearless. Princess Vela stepped down from her dais, approaching Elias cautiously. Her expression was unreadable at first, but as she looked at the human who had led them to victory, Respect and awe began to show. "You have done what few could," she said softly. "You turned what seemed impossible into a triumph. And you did it, without relying solely on armor or weapons." Elias nodded, though he remained calm and measured. "We adapt," he said simply. "We fight together. We survive. That has always been our way." The council members murmured in agreement, some still in disbelief. They had witnessed an extraordinary display. Humans, underestimated for centuries, had proven that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could overcome overwhelming odds. The hall that had once laughed at a human's armor now stood in quiet reverence. Princess Vela extended her hand. "You have earned our respect," she said. "Not just for yourself, but for your people. Humanity has proven itself today." Elias shook her hand firmly. "Respect is earned through actions," he replied. "And humans will continue to earn it one step at a time." The hall erupted, not in laughter but in approval. Alien warriors who had once mocked humans now saw them as equals, if not formidable allies. The raiders' attack had become a test, and humans had passed with intelligence, courage, and ingenuity. As Elias looked around the arena, he understood the lesson had been more than survival. Humans had always faced impossible odds, always been underestimated, yet always found a way to prevail. The galaxy had seen only part of their strength before, but now, after this battle, humans had made their mark. Princess Vela watched him, a newfound respect in her eyes. She had called his armor a joke, and she had laughed. But now, after seeing human courage and strategy in the heat of real danger, she understood that true strength was not what you wore, but what you carried within. The silence in the hall was filled with acknowledgement. Humans had earned a place among the galaxy's respected species, not by flashy technology or superior armor, but by skill, intelligence, and bravery. The hall of the Council on GalacticPrime was quiet now, but not with tension. The silence was heavier, deeper, a silence born of awe and respect. Weeks of chaos and challenges had passed, and the aliens who once mocked humans now regarded them with a new perspective. Humans had fought, adapted, and survived, and Captain Elias Thorne had become the symbol of their remarkable resilience. Princess Vela sat at her dais, observing Elias as he moved among the council members. She had never seen a human command attention, not through power or technology, but through courage, intelligence, and quiet determination. Every step he took, every action he made, reflected a species that refused to be underestimated. The council had convened to discuss the future. The raids were over, the immediate threat repelled, but what remained was the recognition that humans were no longer outsiders. They had proven themselves in combat, in strategy, and in survival. Elias stepped forward, unarmored, wearing only the flexible suit beneath. There was no grand gesture, no arrogance. He moved calmly, confidently, and with purpose. His eyes swept the room, acknowledging the council without bowing or seeking praise. Humans did not fight for glory. They fought to survive and to adapt. Princess Vela rose and spoke. "Council members, today we have witnessed something extraordinary. A human unarmored and underestimated has not only survived our challenges but has led us through real danger. Captain Elias Thorne represents more than skill. He represents the ingenuity and courage of his species." Murmurs ran through the hall. Aliens who had once laughed at the very idea of humans now whispered in admiration. Some nodded subtly. Others exchanged glances of acknowledgement. The long-held prejudices against humans were beginning to crumble. One of the elder council members, a towering figure with crystalline skin, rose. "I admit my error," he said. "I believed humans to be primitive. I believed them weak. But today I have seen their strength, not in armor or weapons, but in intelligence, strategy, and courage. We must reconsider our approach. We must recognize their place among us." Elias inclined his head slightly. "Strength is not only measured by weapons or technology," he said. "It is measured by courage, by teamwork, and by the will to survive. Humans have always relied on these qualities, and we will continue to do so." The hall fell silent again, but this time it was a respectful silence. Every eye was on him, and every mind was considering what this revelation meant. For centuries, humans had been dismissed, underestimated, and mocked. Now they had proven themselves worthy of acknowledgement and alliance. Princess Vela stepped down from her dais and approached Elias. Her expression was calm, but her eyes carried the weight of her newfound respect. "You have earned more than victory in the arena," she said. "You have earned the recognition of this council, and perhaps the understanding of your species. Humanity is no longer an unknown. It is a force to be respected." Elias met her gaze steadily. "Respect is earned through action, not words," he replied. "Humans will continue to earn it through deeds, courage, and perseverance." The council members began to discuss formally. Trade agreements, military alliances, cultural exchanges, plans that had once excluded humans were now proposed with humans at the center. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were partners, allies, and a force the galaxy could not ignore. As discussions continued, Elias moved quietly among the members, observing and listening. He did not dominate the conversation, nor did he push for human advantage. Humans had survived not by seeking superiority but by adapting, cooperating, and proving their worth. That lesson was as important as any alliance. Princess Vela remained by his side. She had once mocked his armor, once laughed at his species. Now she understood the error of her judgment. The human before her, unarmored and calm, had shown her and the council what true strength meant. "You have changed the perception of your species," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Not through technology, not through weapons, but through intelligence and courage. You have shown us that humans are not to be underestimated." Elias nodded. "That is all we ask. That our abilities, our courage, and our ingenuity be recognized, not ignored or ridiculed." The hall's attention turned to a final ceremony. The council voted unanimously to acknowledge humans as a species worthy of respect, partnership, and alliance. Representatives from multiple planets approached Elias, offering formal greetings and pledges of cooperation. It was unprecedented. Humans, once dismissed, were now celebrated. Elias accepted their words with humility. He understood the significance, but he also knew that recognition alone was not enough. Humans had to continue proving themselves, not for glory, but because survival demanded it. Every mission, every battle, every challenge would be an opportunity to show that their strength was real and enduring. Princess Vela observed him quietly. She had misjudged humans, assuming their strength lay in armor and weapons. She had been wrong. Their strength lay within, in courage, adaptability, intelligence, and teamwork. She had once mocked him, called his armor a joke, but now, standing in the hall that had fallen silent in awe, she recognized that humans had redefined what it meant to be powerful. Elias's actions had inspired not only respect, but admiration. Other alien species, previously skeptical, began to see humans as allies, not threats. Humans were now valued for their ingenuity, resourcefulness, and resilience. The galaxy, long dismissive of their kind, was beginning to understand that humans were capable of far more than anyone had imagined. In the quiet moments after the ceremony, Elias walked to the center of the hall. He looked at the council members, the dignitaries, and Princess Vela. The room was filled with whispers of recognition, subtle nods, and expressions of awe. Humans had arrived not through intimidation but through courage and intelligence. Princess Vela approached him again, extending her hand in formal acknowledgement. "You have proven more than skill," she said. "You have shown that humanity is clever, brave, and adaptable. You have earned our respect and our partnership." Elias shook her hand firmly. "Humans have always survived," he replied. "We will continue to survive, adapt, and prove ourselves, not to dominate but to endure. That is the way of our species." The council applauded, not loudly, but with a deep, resonant respect. The applause was for Elias, yes, but also for humanity itself. Humans, once dismissed and underestimated, had claimed their place in the galaxy. The hall fell silent once more, but this time it was not heavy with tension. It was a silence filled with acknowledgement, understanding, and respect. Humans had earned it, not through arrogance, but through courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. Elias stood quietly, observing the hall. He had faced mockery, challenges, and real danger. He had survived, adapted, and led others to victory. Now humans were no longer outsiders. They were a force recognized across the galaxy. Princess Vela, standing nearby, reflected on the lessons learned. She had once judged too quickly, assumed too much, and dismissed a human because of appearances. Now she understood that true strength was not always visible. It was in courage, in ingenuity, in the quiet confidence of one who had faced impossible odds and prevailed. Elias turned toward the hall's exit. Behind him, the council members continued their discussions. now inclusive of humans in ways that had been unimaginable before. The hall had fallen silent once more, but this time the silence carried awe, respect, and the recognition of human potential. The galaxy had seen only a glimpse of what humans were capable of, but that glimpse was enough. The legend of Captain Elias Thorne, the human who removed his armor and left the hall in awe, would spread across systems, inspiring both humans and aliens alike, and so, as he stepped into the light, calm and resolute, the truth was clear. Humans were not weak. Humans were not primitive. Humans were clever, brave, adaptable, and unstoppable when underestimated. The hall fell silent, not in mockery, not in doubt, but in awe. Captain Elias Thorne had shown the galaxy the true strength of humanity. Humans had earned their respect.